at my last job, it was all content. And so at Native, we're doing so much more than content. And with all the different brand work and all the different, types of creative work that we do, that's probably one of my favorite parts about working here is I feel like I got to kind of hone in my skills at my last job and learn on a smaller amount of deliverables and service lines. And now there's just a lot more moving. There's a lot more action. I'm seeing a lot of different types of things. And, we're always trying to provide value to our clients in a way that, like, if we need to tweak anything, we can, and we have that flexibility because of our size and the people that work here. So I would say that's the biggest difference for me, is just working with a more kind of full service, broad spectrum of options.
Yeah. In a given week, what are the things that energize you the most, or the thing that you look forward to the most?
Ooh. Probably my recurring status calls with some of my clients. Those are the people that I'm super comfortable with because I talk to them on a weekly or biweekly basis. And it keeps us both aligned and on the same page. So you're not spending an hour drafting up an email with updates. You can just jump on the phone and kind of, chat and catch up about our lives or about what's going on at the other company. But then you get to kind of get down to brass tacks and be like, all right, here's what we're working on. And you get to work through any questions or concerns that they have. And I feel like it gives me a better feel for the relationship and the person, so that there aren't a ton of surprises. You're always like, I feel like I'm doing my due diligence as their account manager, keeping them in the loop, but then also making sure that they're content with what we're doing. There's no confusion, and just overall happy.
Yeah. I've had a few clients who have said, how do I get more out of my partnership with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I be a good client? And those questions are related to each other because our favorite clients do get more out of us.
Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely.
absolutely.
What are some of the things that your favorite client relationships, like, what's there in that relationship that maybe is missing out of ones where it's a little bit more strained and they're not getting the best out of us?
Yeah, I would say where we all feel like we're on the same playing field. I don't love when a client comes in and thinks we work for them. Like, this is a partnership. I want it to feel, for everyone, I want it to feel lateral, so that there is, that open and honest communication. There's no defense mechanisms needing to be involved or intimidation factors coming into play. Like, we can just sit down and be people together. And so many of my clients are that way. And I think, again, back to those recurring status calls, that helps kind of break down that barrier. If maybe they do kind of have that tendency, or just that's how relationships work for them. But for me, I think that being able to go into the conversation and make a recommendation, if it's maybe not entirely what they're thinking, or it's even completely against the direction that they thought that they should go, being able to have that comfort level and have that open dialogue. And that's how we're going to do our job best, because we're not just trying to people please. That's not what, we want you to be happy, and we want you to feel good about this relationship and the work we're doing, but we're the experts, and that's why you're paying us. And so we want to be able to come to you without feeling scared that, you're going to get upset, or there's going to be, a bunch of fires happening.
Yeah. Our clients are experts in their business. We're hopefully are experts at what we deliver, and then together that works really well. And oftentimes we can see at the beginning, do they view us as someone who's going to carry out a task, or someone who's going to help solve the problem? It always works better if they're just showing us what the problem is and we can help solve it. I think sometimes those strained relationships come because of a past relationship they've had with a vendor or partner, and it didn't go well. And so they're trying to prevent that from happening, but it's not because they want to have that type of partnership. They feel like they have to.
It's a trust issue. And I think that that's when I get down to, like, even if I'm going into a conversation with a client who might be a little bit more intense and it might make me a little bit more on edge or nervous, like I still try to show that I'm not nervous. Like I have a calm demeanor. I want, and in turn, that can make other people feel more calm and more comfortable and know that, like, if they are worried or they have had that bad experience, that like they can share that with us. Like they can tell us that, hey, I've worked with agencies in the past and X, Y, and Z has happened. And we can say, well, here's how we're going to make sure that doesn't happen here.
I was on a call with a client yesterday, and they asked us to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came back to them, we said, "Here's what you asked us to do. By the way, as we talked about this, we think there might be two opportunities to do these other two things. So here's how they could work together. Now let's discuss what should be priority. Is it the thing that you originally asked us to do, or is it these other things we've shown?"
Mm-hmm.
And what we ended up agreeing on is that we would do one of each for one of their customer verticals and go all the way across the board. But they said, "This is why we like working with you guys. We saw something that needed to be done, and you took it to that next step." And to me, like that's what it should be, right? Is you should not just expect that your partner does that thing, but also tries to figure out, like, how do I just solve this better?
Right.
And I hope that our clients almost expect us to do that, because that's what we're kind of expect out of ourselves, at least.
Yeah, that's something I love about Native is we can be flexible in that way, or we can look and say, okay, we had originally planned to do this, but now when we'd planned that 6 months ago. Now the brand is different, the website is different, like all the work we've done has laid a completely fresh foundation. And then we're like, well, if we did what we had originally planned for, that's not going to provide near the amount of value. It doesn't even make sense. It's not as relevant. But we're not just going to do that because it's like, oh, well, that's what they're paying for. They're going to be content with it. We're just going to move forward. No, we come in there and we say, all right, here's what we originally planned for, but here are the tweaks we think we should make in order to make it more relevant to what we're doing now, 6 months, 8 months, a year later.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between just being like a production shop that gets things done versus somebody who's more outcome based and just trying to solve the problem. Because, sometimes we all, if we know what the outcome needs to be, we'll find a way to get there. Like, we will find a way to get there. And fortunately, I think we have enough of the skill sets and or partnerships to make sure that however we need to get there, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I do think people appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I was a client, I would appreciate it because, again, like I would come to Native and be like, all right, here's what I think I want, but you guys do this day in and day out with all different types of companies and industries and in different locations with different, problems to solve. Like, what do you think? Like, that's what I would want. I wouldn't want to come in and say, no, you said you would do this exactly this way. I don't care if my company has done a 180. Like, no one would say that. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of problem solvers and people who like a good puzzle to solve and really feel good about when that puzzle, comes together. Even if it's just helping someone else who, even if it's not solely their world, like, how do I help this other person who's trying to put this puzzle together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think our team's pretty driven on that. I'm curious to know what drives you to do those types of things.
Well, I love a challenge. I don't like to just come in and be a paper pusher and just do the same thing every single day. Like I that's what I love about this industry is every day is different. Every conversation we're having is different. And when I look at, again, back to that example of a deliverable that we had said we were going to do one way, like I want to make sure that before we start it, even if I think things are the same, that I'm thinking through, okay, or am I sure that everything is the same and that this is still relevant because this was something they signed on for 8 months ago. And I like being able to go into the conversation, and I feel like with a client, and that builds trust of, hey, this is what we had talked about, but actually we have this fun idea of changing it up. and making it more relevant, more interesting, and it's going to drive X more conversions because it's so much more relevant to what you're doing and what we're doing today versus 2018. And I love the reactions, like you were saying with that one client, like them being able to come in and be like, this is why we're working with you. That's what drives me. Like being able to hear that type of feedback. It's like, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of us live for that. Like we're just, we just want to hear the client say it. We will work our tails off to get that type of reaction. We feed off of it. Totally. If I was to ask other people here at Native, what they like about working with Kara or what your superpower is, what do you think people would say?
Oh goodness. I would say my primary go-to is my organization. And that probably seems like, I don't know, a fail-safe answer, but really I am very intense about my organization. Like that was my challenge when I first started here is what are the different platforms we're using? What does my day-to-day look like? And how can I make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks and I'm getting everything done and making it as organized as possible for others. I've actually received that feedback that like I am able to stay on top of things and keep other people held accountable just because of keeping things organized. And it's something that comes super naturally to me. I have to find the right process, but I live for organizing. I love organizing my closets. I love organizing my car. And I love that being an account manager, that is a strength that you need. That's a requirement. Is that when I think about some people I know that aren't organized, think about them doing this job, it gives me heart palpitations for real.
Yeah, totally. So if I was asked the same group, what's something about like your personality or like personality quirks or like things like that, what would people talk about? Or like stupid party tricks that we've learned about you?
Well, we haven't been able to party, really.
I know.
So I'm not sure people really know. But that's tough. I would say that I don't really speak unless I have something valuable or important to bring to the table. I'm all for making small talk, and I can do that part where I'm just blabbing to make everyone feel more comfortable so it's not awkward. I will take that responsibility. But when it comes to providing feedback or, brainstorming, like I have this innate feeling inside that like I don't want to say something until I'm super confident and super sure of it. And so there's a lot of instances where people probably think that I'm shy or maybe I just like don't know what's going on. But really it's that I want to make sure that I'm actually bringing something to the table and people aren't, thinking that I'm just saying something to hear myself talk, because that's not my jam.
We were talking about culture earlier with someone else today and talking about this kind of environment of trust. And my perception is that most everybody here feels comfortable in kind of being who they are, and they don't really self-edit themselves too much. Like everybody feels able to just kind of talk about, what they think about a particular thing. Do you think that's the case, or do you feel like you sometimes find yourself kind of self-editing? And
No, I don't think that I self-edit, because I feel a lot of times where something comes out of my mouth and I'm like, wow, what? Like, did I even process that before it came out? Like sometimes it's new information to me when I'm just hearing myself say it. So no, I feel super comfortable with everyone here. And I think that says a lot, because I started at the beginning-ish of the quarantine and haven't had a lot of FaceTime, like in-person FaceTime with everyone. I've met everyone and I've talked to everyone on video, and I've worked with pretty much everyone, but I I feel like it says a lot about the culture and the people and the similarities between, 25 to 30 people, that I can feel comfortable talking to someone or just blabbing when I actually haven't spent that much time just like hanging out in person and kind of getting that, that more comfortable vibe.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, there's a lot of people who have started jobs this year and their sort of colleague bonding time has been cut short.
Yeah.
And so it can be a little tough. Have you seen ways where you've been able to kind of through this quarantine time, been able to get to know either clients better or your team better?
Yeah, I think for internal and external meetings, everyone is really good at trying to like have like personal conversation, real conversation before we start talking business. And I love that, like just being able to ask someone, how are you doing? And some people just want to get down to business. Again, I kind of mirror that and just go straight in. But most people are like, okay, yeah, this is happening this week. Or, and depending on who I'm talking to internally, sometimes a lot of time will pass before we realize, wow, we should probably start talking about work now. But I love that. Like, I love that I can sit down for a meeting with a coworker that's strictly about, client work, and time passes because we've just been talking about our lives and connecting in that way. And then also something that Native set up were these water cooler chats. So, the time that you would typically cross paths in the kitchen or at the water cooler, we have these random groups of 3 where we can just hang out and just hop on a video. And I've learned so much about some people that work here, that maybe questions that like I wouldn't have asked in any other meeting, just because we don't have 30 minutes of just free flowing random conversation. And I do feel a big difference, especially when I'm meeting, doing my water cooler chats with people that, I'm not as exposed to as others on the day to day or even on a weekly basis.
It's so true. I think some people would hear us talking about this and say, it sounds like they're just wasting time just chatting through the day, right? But it's not. I mean, it productivity is not an issue for us. We get a lot of stuff done. But if you are productive and the culture suffers, what's going to be the quality of that work? What's going to be the thing that energizes you to come to work every day? So it's one of the reasons why we prioritize that water cooler chats, is making sure people can bump into their colleagues. And that's where the good stuff happens, is you get an account person talking to a creative, talking to a performance marketing person, and then you never even know what's going to come up, but they've got a better relationship and then they can solve problems better whenever they do get together, I think.
Well, and then it goes back to your question about self-editing, where like if there's someone that I don't work with that often and they're presenting their work to me, I might want, I might not have a feel for their, their demeanor or their personality. And like, I want to, doing the water cooler chat, like it gives you that, like you get to form a relationship with people that you maybe aren't interacting with daily. And then you can go into actual work meetings with them and feel comfortable, like batting around ideas. And I think it just builds a certain, for me, comfort with in a relationship just means that I am not self-editing. I'm just saying whatever is on my mind. And I feel like I have that. And the water cooler chats have definitely helped in that regard.
So we turned 5 years old this year. We hit our 5th anniversary during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
during quarantine. And you've been here for roughly about half a year so far. So you had just kind of started whenever, and just been here before that started. So I've been asking people if they've had any favorite stories since they've been at Native. And obviously your time here is short, but is there anything that you've liked enough to like tell your friends or family?
Oh yeah. I think the thing that sticks out most to me, because we haven't been able to get together in person very much, is the couple of in-person times I've had with everyone. We went to the Nelson Atkins and just hung out outside under the trees and played yard games and had a few beers, and you just mingled. And with being working from home most of the time, you don't have that opportunity to mingle. And so to me, that's like what is sticking out to me the most, because those are the times where it just felt like a normal day. Like we were just doing a normal happy hour. It was something that we had done a million times before. And even though it was my first native happy hour, it felt like I had done it with those people a million times before, because everyone, it kind of carries the same personality throughout, work and personal. And when we're having fun after work together, like I don't feel like, oh wow, that person is so different. They're so serious and professional and like, very rigid. And then like after work, it's like, whoa, that person is really letting loose. Everyone just feels like my friend, like, and that's pretty cheesy, but it's like, I feel like I could, if I needed to, talk to anyone here. And so I would say those in-person times have stuck out, and that's probably what I've talked about the most, since that's one of the most times I've gotten out this year. Yeah.
Yeah, that the Nelson Atkins, I remember thinking that, because you and Taylor were fairly recent hires at that point.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, you don't know if we're short, tall, like you've just seen us on, we've got people who have seen us on Zoom and that's about it. So yeah, that was a good time, even though it was, a very unique situation with, everybody socially distanced with masks on and just trying to make it normal,
Yeah.
and enjoy everybody's company.
But we made it work. And before that, we had like the first full company like meeting. Of course, we have our like weekly meetings, but this one was different. And I loved that. Like, again, it kind of felt like everything was normal for a little bit. And that was my first like experience with being all together and like listening to you talk, and just about like the most high level goals with the business and with the industry and with the environment, with everything going on. And I just like, I left that meeting feeling very like, okay, this is where I belong. Like, this is why I'm here.
Well, to that point, I talk to people all the time who are maybe applying for a position or something like that, and they will ask me or others, why, usually others, why do you work at Native? How would you answer that question?
Why do I work at Native? I would say there's many reasons, but the first reason, back to what I had mentioned before, is getting the exposure to so much more work that you can do at an agency. That's something that I've always been interested in. I love the creative work, and I'm a very visual person. So working in content was great, but not super visual. And so seeing all the creative work and how everything kind of comes together after doing the brand work and laying that foundation, that's just so cool. One of the other big reasons I really wanted to work here was the local aspect. The previous company I was working for wasn't based out of KC, and that was hard. It was hard being a remote employee, and now we have local clients, and I feel a lot more integrated in KC just by working in Native and being surrounded by people that all live in Kansas City and either have moved from California or born and raised here like me. I love that aspect. And then third, which I didn't necessarily know before I started, besides some like brief interview conversations, is the people. Like, everyone is on the same page. Like, in most places you can't say that. There's a few bad eggs, but here it's like everyone wants to have fun and enjoy their work and not just be like, again, pencil pushers sitting at their desk coding all day. Like, we want to work together. We want to be in meetings together and engage and solve those problems for the clients, and then also put our feet up together and have a beer. And that's my kind of crew.
That's cool. If you had to make a prediction on what we feel like in the next 5 years when we hit the 10-year mark, any ideas, any guesses, any hopes?
I feel and I hope that we will have the same culture. I know that the way we've talked about it before is we kind of have a sweet spot idea as far as amount of employees that work here. And we aren't going to have 100, 200 employees. And I love that about Native, because we're not just like, oh, we're starting at, 5 to 15 to 20 to 30 people. And then like all of a sudden you're going to become a number, or you're going to become one of 60 account managers. And I love that every single person that is brought on board has been vetted and is like going to have the same type of mentality as us. So I hope that that continues, because you want to work alongside people that want to work hard. And you already have enough obstacles in the work client balance, and you don't want the obstacles to come from within. And so I hope that that continues, the people that we hire and then the culture that we have. And I feel like we've done a great job of holding on to the culture, even though we're all remote, with a couple days in the office here and there with a handful of people. But I hope in 5 years we're back in an office environment all together, and having more in-person gatherings and events, and kind of get back into some sort of normalcy. So from my perspective, people we're hiring from a work and culture perspective are critical.
I think we have the same dream. Sounds like a good one too.
Yes. I mean, you can't go wrong when you love coming to work because of the people that are around you.